This is episode 286 of That Shakespeare Life. That Shakespeare Life is supported by listeners just like you who sign up to be our patrons. Get insider access to the making of our show, including over 150 additional episodes when you become a patron today at patreon.com/thatshakespearelife. If you're an educator in Shakespeare history, or you're just a massive Shakespeare fan and you love trying out history for yourself with hands-on activities that you can complete at home or in a classroom, then consider becoming a member of That Shakespeare Life. Inside our membership is a collection of hands-on history activity kits that work like science labs for Shakespeare history. Each kit coordinates with specific episodes of our show that invite you to cook, play, and create your way through the life of William Shakespeare. Sign up today at CassidyCash.com/member and stay tuned after the episode for even more details.
Hi, I'm Nikki Marmory, author of On Wilder Seas. Another great method for studying the life of William Shakespeare includes listening to this. It's That Shakespeare Life with my friend Cassidy Cash.
So I like to describe it not so much as a love song, but as the ultimate breakup song of the early modern period.
Welcome to That Shakespeare Life with Cassidy Cash. Cassidy believes that if you desire to successfully learn or perform Shakespeare's plays, then understanding the real life and history of William Shakespeare himself is a must. That Shakespeare Life is the podcast that helps you go beyond the curtain of some of Shakespeare's most iconic works and explore the world of early modern England as Shakespeare would have lived it, learning from the writers, historians, and performers who know it best. And now, here's Cassidy.
Ghosts and spiritual manifestations were a fixture in 16th century pop culture publications like songs, ballads, and of course, plays like Shakespeare's that feature ghosts like Banquo, Hamlet's father, and even a string of dead victims that visit Richard III on the eve of battle in Shakespeare's Richard III. They were as haunting as ever in Shakespeare's lifetime, but what was the purpose, place, and reception of ghosts for Shakespeare's lifetime? Did people believe ghosts were real? As we head into October, the month of all things haunted and spooky, we are sitting down with our guest, Savannah Jensen, to explore not only what people believed about ghosts, but one specific piece of 16th century pop culture where ghosts were a mainstay, and that is the Haunted Lover's Ballad. These were songs written specifically for the lovers among us, and surprisingly, featured ghosts as the main character. Savannah Jensen is a researcher of early modern literature. Her work specializes in the popular representations of ghosts in the 16th and 17th centuries. Currently, she's working on a book project that traces how pamphlets raised recently deceased political figures as ghosts over the course of the 17th century. Hello, Savannah. Welcome to That Shakespeare Life.
Hi, Cassidy. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm excited to dive into this topic today because it's one we haven't covered on the show before. And it's one I actually didn't know about until I read your dissertation. In Savannah's dissertation, she's examining ghosts from the 16th and 17th century. And she writes that, quote, in Act 1 of Hamlet, the ghost of Hamlet's father states to the prince, I am thy father's spirit, end quote. But when Hamlet was first performed in 1600, ghosts were considered doctrinally unsupportable by most Protestant denominations. And I will add a caveat to my own statement there. Hamlet's actually dated anywhere from 1599 to 1601. So don't send me emails about the date of Hamlet. We're placing him around 1600 for the sake of our conversation. But in England at this time, most Protestant denominations didn't like the idea of ghosts, including the Church of England. Savannah, what does it mean to say that ghosts were doctrinally unsupportable? Does that mean that people didn't believe ghosts were real?
One of the big differences between early Protestant thinkers and Catholics is especially when we're talking about the afterlife, is the idea of purgatory. So purgatory is this third space in between heaven and hell, where if you have committed sins that are not great enough to send you to hell and yet prevent you from directly connecting with God after death, these sins are painfully burned away. And so because of this state, you'll see that purgatory features a lot in medieval ghost stories in which the ghosts come back to the living and ask that prayers are said on their behalf to hasten their release from purgatory. Many Protestants look at purgatory and find that there's no scriptural basis for this space. And so without purgatory, most Protestants will say you'll either go directly to heaven after you die, or you'll go directly to hell. There are some denominations that believe there's an intermediate time between Judgment Day, but after you die, you're going one place or the other. While Protestants don't necessarily believe that it's impossible for God to send the dead back to the living, they just don't believe it's probable that God would bring the dead back to the living.
Wintertime and the Christmas period in particular was said to be a time during the year that it was possible for the dead to commune more closely with the living through the spiritual world. You can think about it as kind of a curtain between the two, the living and then the dead. And this Christmas winter time period was when that curtain or veil was very thin. That's a visual guide there for you. But Savannah, if there was a predominant rejection of the belief in ghosts or the idea that the dead were going to come back and appear to the living, was there any folkloric belief outside of religion, maybe, that there was this closeness of the spirit world on holidays like Christmas?
Yeah, so there was definitely folklore out there. Christmas time in particular, I'm not sure if there was necessarily a belief in a thinness between different realms, but Christmas time was a traditional time for telling ghost stories. So because England is a mostly agrarian society outside of London, during the winter, there's not a lot to do. And I was looking it up earlier today. This Christmas, sunset in England will be around 4 p.m. and sunrise will be around 8 a.m. And so these are very long, very cold nights. And telling ghost stories is one way to pass the time. And I think while I don't necessarily know if there's a belief in like a thinness of a veil, we have to remember that in the early modern period, the world's a lot darker. We don't have street lights. If you don't have the moon or the stars out, it can be a really dark place. You might hear things go bump in the night that you can't necessarily identify. And that's a world where I think definitely it can feel like the ghost stories are more likely to happen, or you're more likely to have a ghostly encounter, especially if you have these stories in your head.
One specific place that ghosts persisted in appearing was in ballads, a type of media in the early modern period that Savannah describes as ephemera due to its temporary nature. And one specific kind of ballad that featured ghosts was in haunted lovers' ballads. Savannah, there's a lot to unpack in that term, of course, but introduce us a bit to haunted lovers' ballads. Were these essentially love songs that featured ghosts?
Yeah, so I like to describe them not so much as a love song, but as the ultimate breakup song of the early modern period. So here's the basic premise of how these ballads are told. You have two lovers. They look like they are about to get married. And then one lover decides that they are going to suddenly reject the other. The rejected lover then dies, usually of heartbreak. And then they come back as a ghost and haunt their rejected lover until that person either dies or is so devastated that it's as if they were dead.
So you heard it here first. William Shakespeare and his contemporaries would have been major Taylor Swift fans. Who was the Taylor Swift of haunted lovers' ballads? Do we know of who the writers of these were?
We don't actually have a lot of author contributions, the same way we might think of with plays. And a lot of our ballads actually don't come until after Shakespeare's time. A lot of the big collecting comes after 1660. And a lot of things before that, because these are ephemera or like temporary things, are really kind of lost to us. But we do know printers. They would put their names on different ballads to say this is who it was printed by. Usually, maybe sometimes they would also be booksellers. So you would know, oh, if I want this kind of ballad, I would go to this person. And so 1690s, way after Shakespeare's time, we do have a group of printers who are really marketing these haunted lovers ballads hard, called the Brooksby Group. And they are selling different types of haunted lovers ballads. They are kind of modifying, changing the tune, changing the story a little bit, changing up the images, just different enough so that if you liked the genre, you would be really interested in buying the next one. But while we don't have the actual ballads, a lot of them pre-1660, it doesn't mean they didn't exist. It just means we don't have them per se.
Well, we're very used to things like lost plays here on That Shakespeare Life. So we understand the concept of knowing something was there and not having the physical copy of it as well. So I think we're really comfortable with that idea in context of haunted lovers ballads. Tell us about the music that these were set to. I mean, was a ballad designed to be set to music, or was it an a cappella kind of thing? What would one have sounded like?
So yeah, these ballads would be set to music. They would be a pretty simple tune, and the tunes would be reused over and over again. So one tune that comes up is, especially in haunted lovers ballad, it's called Tender Hearts of London. And that actually started as a new playhouse tune. So ballads and playhouses have a lot of overlap in the kind of music they would share. You might have an instrument accompanying it, but you might also have ballad sellers who would sing it a cappella. The tunes get reused a lot so that anyone can start joining in. If you're familiar with the tune, all you have to learn is a new set of words. So Tender Hearts of London gets reused for not just haunted lovers ballads, but other ballads. So I'll give you some titles. Cheat Upon Cheat, or True Love Rewarded with Cruelty. And so there's this sense that this tune is the one that if you are hearing it, you're expecting a story about a broken-hearted lover. And so that happens not just with haunted lovers ballads, but with different tunes, they get different associations over time.
I want to ask whether or not the tune Yankee Doodle here in the US would be a reasonable comparison. I like to provide comparisons because a lot of times it just helps you wrap your mind around an idea that's brand new. But is that a decent contemporary tune? Also, God Save the Queen is pretty popular as a tune that gets applied to tons of different situations, different wordings, I think.
Have you heard of like the 4-chord song?
The 4-chord song?
Yeah, it's the 4 chords. They're used over and over again, and they're used in a bunch of contemporary music. And so it's very easy to learn a new song as a player that way. But you can get different tones out of that. So I think maybe Yankee Doodle or God Save the Queen is a better comparison because there's some sort of like association with that song that you'll get.
Right. And the ballads, the haunted lover ballads were similar. You could hear kind of the opening song and you know what's about to come at you for sure.
Exactly.
Now, were these haunted lovers ballads intended to be morality tales against infidelity or like a warning to future matches of what not to do?
A lot of them were. A lot of them have this opening of, come young lovers, come listen to this tale. And I think there's definitely that morality aspect. You don't want to be the rejecting lover who causes someone so much heartbreak that they die and then they come back to haunt you. But I think it also depends on your positionality. If you're someone who's had your heart broken, I think there's something kind of satisfying of knowing someone else has had their heart broken, but has gotten this posthumous revenge. So I think it functions on multiple levels.
You may be my end, but don't think I won't come back and let you know about it.
Exactly. More to that Taylor Swift analogy.
Yes, exactly. So you mentioned that there was this understanding about beliefs of ghosts, their reality or lack thereof, and their usefulness as agents of moral admonishment and influence. And I wonder if that bleeds over into what we should think about ghosts that Shakespeare uses as in his plays, or whether or not haunted lovers ballads make an appearance in Shakespeare's plays. I've always thought the ghosts that Shakespeare included were put there simply to be fun, terrifying at times, or perhaps useful messengers on occasion. But is there a cultural significance related to haunted lovers ballads that we should pay attention to?
One of the things that came up in my research is thinking about the agency that ghosts have or don't have. So I taught a ghost story class, and one of my students kept telling me, ghosts aren't scary. They can't do anything to you. And so one thing that's come up in my research is I've been realizing that may be a misconception on our part. It may not apply to early modern ghosts or the ghosts of Shakespeare's time. So what you'll notice when you read through Shakespeare's work and his contemporaries is that the people who see ghosts have a really physical reaction to the ghosts. And sometimes it makes perfect sense. Oh, okay, Macbeth ordered Banquo to be murdered. So of course he's feeling guilt. Maybe he's feeling fear. And that's a reaction from his guilty consciousness. But then you have things like the Second Maiden's Tragedy, where you have the character of Govianus and his betrothed, the lady, which is the greatest, most name out there for a character. But he sees her ghost. He says, "Oh, never came astonishment and fear so pleasing to mankind. I take delight to have my breast shake and my hair stand stiff. If this be horror, let it never die. Came all the pains upheld to me in that shape, I should endure them smiling. I'd not change this fever for felicity of man or all the pleasures of 10,000 ages." And so here you've got an example where a character shouldn't necessarily feel fear at the sight of a ghost. He hasn't killed her. He doesn't have reason to feel guilt, and yet he feels fear at her presence. And this kind of pops up again and again throughout early modern drama. And so I do begin to wonder if the ghosts are not the ones causing the fear. And there's precedents for that. The early modern bodies are thought to be more porous and affected by the supernatural. And so if we think of that, I wonder if ghosts are not just messengers or just there to make people feel guilty, but what if they are actually doing something? What if they are avenging themselves?
And at least in this case of the second Maiden's tragedy, he's talking like it's a pretty pleasant experience. He's definitely a fan of the jump scare, I think, and probably, not afraid in the sense of, I don't want to be experiencing this. Mm-hmm. His fear is based around a lot of language that sounds like he's happy for this experience. Mm-hmm. So that's a different perspective on them as well. And certainly helps explain why ghost stories were popular as an entertainment and fun thing for Christmas time if they were received with this kind of, I'm going to be scared, but I like it. This is fun. Oh, yeah. Okay. I want to do this. Yeah. So, well, I know we would love to learn more about ghost stories and Christmas time and definitely dive into the world of haunted lovers ballads further. What can you tell us about books or resources we should use if we're new to this topic and we want to learn more about it? Where should we begin?
So there are two really great books that trace the history of ghost stories and have really great sections on the early modern period in Shakespeare's time. So the first is Susan Owen's The Ghost, A Cultural History. And the other is Catherine Belsey's Tales of the Troubled Dead, Ghost Stories in Cultural History. But if you're interested in ballads in particular, there's no better resource than the English Broadside Ballad Archive, or EBA. There's nearly 10,000 ballads that can be interacted with. You can read their text, you can see the art and the woodblocks they use, you can listen to the music, and it's a really great experience, and it's free online for the public.
These are great resources. We'll link to these as well as to Savannah's work in the show notes for today's episode, so you can check those out. And we'll have some direction in the show notes for you as well. If you want to see a copy of a haunted lover's ballad and be able to read those lyrics and find out what one looked like. And I'll even see if I can dig up the tunes that Savannah is recommending here for you to see if you can maybe hear some recreated ballads as well. So there will be a lot to unpack in the show notes for today's episode. Make sure you go there to find out more and to learn more about the history behind haunted lovers ballads. Now, Savannah, we ask everyone this next question here at That Shakespeare Life, and that's, what's the one book you would take with you on a deserted island? My friends in England tell me I'm supposed to allow you the complete works of Shakespeare and a copy of the Bible, so your choice would be in addition to those.
If I could get a collection of Neil Gaiman's work with me, Shakespeare and the Bible, I think I would be set.
I think that's an excellent choice. You would definitely be well entertained on your desert island with that selection. So what's next for you? What are you working on now that you're excited about?
So right now I'm working on a book project about the ghosts in pamphlets over the course of the 17th century, and particularly the political figures who die and then are almost immediately resurrected to share a new political message, sometimes things that they would never have said in life. And so I'm really curious to see where that leads me.
That sounds exciting. If it's as much fun as your work into haunted lovers ballads and the history of ghosts and its relationship to things like Christmas, I know we're going to look forward to seeing your future work as well. Thank you so much, Savannah Jensen, for being here today and taking us through the history of this delightful new topic and sharing with us how it was a part of Christmas celebrations for Shakespeare's lifetime. This was really fun. I hope that you have enjoyed your time here, because I know we've enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you.
I've gathered up visual and artifacts to go along with our conversation today, including examples of haunted lovers ballads where you can listen to some recreated ones, see the lyrics of how they were made, and we even link you over to the second Maiden's Tragedy, where you can see that speech that Savannah shared with you today. If that's a new play for you, you can explore that one further and see what that character was talking about in terms of ghosts and his experience with them. Find all of these things, as well as links to the research and resources Savannah mentions, in the show notes at CassidyCash.com/episode 286. That's CassidyCash.com/EP286. Take this podcast into your classroom with hands-on history activity kits that coordinate with our show and with Shakespeare's plays when you join our membership called Experience Shakespeare. Experience Shakespeare is a collection of hands-on history activity kits that let you step into the 17th century and try out a piece of Shakespeare's life for yourself. We explore things like how to make your own iron gall ink, how to play 16th century card games, and how to make your own apple wassail, among many others. The activity kits are designed to work with ingredients you may already have at home, but are easily sourced from your local market or store. And they all let you try out a piece of the life of William Shakespeare. In addition to hands-on activity kits, there's also a library of educator resources, including lesson plans, worksheets, history guides, coloring pages, illustrated maps and diagrams, genealogy outlines, and all kinds of extras, all packed into the members' resource library available inside Experience Shakespeare as well. So whether you just want to get the most VIP access to the insider history behind a show, or you're looking for a way to step into the 17th century for yourself and really try out a piece of that Shakespeare life, then consider joining us inside Experience Shakespeare. It's definitely the place to cook, play, and create your way through the life of William Shakespeare. Learn more and sign up today at CassidyCash.com/member. That's CassidyCash.com/member. That Shakespeare Life is powered by our patrons. Listeners like you who sign up to support our show make sure that we are able to bring you the best in Shakespeare history research here each week. If you would like to play a direct role in powering our podcast and get insider access to the making of our show, including the chance to submit your own questions to be asked during an upcoming interview, then sign up to be a patron today at patreon.com/thatshakespearelife. As a special bonus, patrons of our show get 40% off Experience Shakespeare, so make sure you grab that special 40% off coupon from the Patreon page while you're there. That Shakespeare Life is researched and produced by Cassidy Cash. That's me. Our audio engineer is Gary Mayholm. That's it for this week. Thank you for listening. I'm Cassidy Cash, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to That Shakespeare Life. As always, the best conversations happen after the episode over at CassidyCash.com. Become a part of a vibrant Shakespeare conversation by adding your voice over at the website. Until next time, remember, when you want to know William Shakespeare, you have to go behind the curtain and into That Shakespeare Life.